Welcome, everybody. It's episode 367 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, aka Shawnee Podcast, joined today by the Tony Kelly of Irish MMA Media, Graham McDonald, as we talk about a massive night in the world of mixed martial arts. Some are calling it card of the year. It's right up there, without a shadow of a doubt, but we will get into all of that over the next hour or so here on the Severe MMA podcast. But before we start talking about MMA, we must tell you that this beautiful podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Manscaped. And gentlemen, Father's Day is just around the corner, and our friends at Manscaped are here to ensure that father figures out there are looking daddy material this June. Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, which includes their signature Lawnmower 4.0, is the perfect bundle to tackle any and all old man hair from head to toe. This right here is no dad joke. Treat him and yourself and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. Trust me, this dad bod will thank you. Manscaped is designed with Father's Day in mind. The Performance Package 4.0 is absolutely perfect for everything your dad needs. First of all, it includes the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. Also includes the Weed Whacker for the ear and nose hair, the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver as well to get you smelling good, at the boxer briefs and in the travel bag as well. That Lawnmower 4.0, let me tell you about that, is the advanced skin safe technology, 400k LED light for a more precise shave as well. Does your dad use the same trimmer for his body and face? Let's throw that out the window and get him the upgrade he needs. Manscaped have also launched their Boxers 2.0. That, dare I say it, they're the best boxers ever. We all know dads love their comfort. With summer just around the corner, the Boxers 2.0 are here to save every father from the uncomfortable heat. These new boxers are packed with revolutionary features, including the jewel pouch designed to cradle the boys in their special place. Whether it's mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, golfing in the sun, these are absolutely perfect. These boxers are great, and they breathe without breaking a sweat. Dads, buy this for yourself. Sons, buy this for your dad. Ladies, buy this for your man. And doggy daddies, you deserve this too. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off at manscaped.com with free shipping. Use the code SevereMMA. Shake what your mama gave you, shake what your daddy gave you. Right, Graham, let's get straight into UFC 275. No messing about today. What a card overall, I suppose. First, the two title fights. I was really excited to see Valentina, as we talked about last week. I was really excited for the main event. Really excited as well for Joanna Jędrzejczyk against Zhang Weili. And I think somehow, especially the top two anyway, they went over and above my expectations. The Zhang Weili and Jędrzejczyk fight was brilliant until it was kind of rudely taken away from us, I feel like. Jake Matthews put on one of the greatest performance of his career and destroyed Andre Filo. We'll get to that. Jack Della Maddalena put himself out there. We'll get to the undercard and we'll talk about all of that, but there was just some really good fights. Even the opener tonight went to unanimous decision, but I enjoyed that. I think it was a very, very good fight. There was big knockouts, like people just like taken out of their consciousness, late finishes, the whole lot. This card kind of, it had it all, and for the old the old grey MMA fans like us, Graham, it was a pretty good one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, the top fights really lived up to it. I think as we talked about on the podcast and you guys talked about on the preview show, it was definitely very interesting. Kind of a lot of opinions on which way it was going to go. A lot of methods of victory for that potentially, and I think we saw a lot of those methods of victory nearly play out in these fights. And you mentioned the Joanna and Jędrzejczyk fight there, kind of ending abruptly. That was just. It was weird to see Joanna just kind of lying on her face there. It was really kind of seems like, I know she laid her gloves down but afterwards, but it seems like a changing in the guard. And even though I suspect she'll be back soon enough, it did seem like, the old guard kind of being defeated kind of comprehensively once and for all. But you know, it wasn't really comprehensive in the main event, but I suppose the old guard was defeated as well. And, you know, the old guard was nearly defeated in the co-main event. So there was a lot of ups and downs and back and forward and, you know, crazy fights here. So I don't think anybody could have watched this and been disappointed.
Indeed, 100%, yeah. Do you know what? I think we'll start off with the Valentina Shevchenko fight against Talia Santos, because that was... It mightn't have been the best fight of the night, but it was so fucking intriguing, and it held
the
you.
Jeopardy and I was just like, I don't know what you think about it, but I think Shevchenko just did everything she possibly could to throw away that fight.
100%.
Just unbelievable. I was like, oh my God, what is she doing? It was just like, it was just unbelievable what she was doing. She was initiating all the clinches, going for takedowns, getting reversed. Just terrible fight IQ for somebody so good. And when she did have it on the feet, she was dominating so easily. And, you know, she needed a bit of luck. Even that like headbutt that closed the eye, I think was a big moment in the fight. And she was very, very lucky to get away with her belt. She
was, to be fair, even though I scored at 49-46 for Shevchenko, but that's kind of beside the point.
Yeah, me too. I think it was the second round only that I gave to Talia, but
I have strong feelings in that second round. The third. Oh yeah, that's okay.
Sorry.
I gave her the first, to be honest. But did you notice that Valentina looked a bit off coming to the cage? I thought she looked very weird. She looked nervous, and she had a big red nose on her, and I know it seemed very odd. I saw in the post-fight press conference she talked about she came in with a foot injury. Maybe that's part of it, but she also talked about when she walked to the cage she only weighed 130 pounds, which for a 125 pound fight is pretty unheard of. Now, she's not the biggest flyweight in the world, and as my guy David Bixenspan pointed out to me, she's come in underweight when she's fought at 135 before, but still in all, you would think you would think someone who was probably cutting a little bit of weight to get down to 125 would put on more than 5 pounds. And she the way she said it as well, she was talking about like, oh, we've kind of, because it's a different time zone after there, you cut weight, and then you actually, I think they had 2 nights of sleep before they got up to fight at like 6 o'clock in the morning over in Singapore. So I don't know, was that part of it? But make no excuses. It was the same for Talia Santos. But she did look a little bit off. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, it came out again later on that there was something just not right with her. If it was even not something physical or not, she was sick or anything like that, maybe it was something mental, but she just didn't look on it from second one. And you know, the biggest thing, you said, you know, she tried to do everything wrong. The first shot she really threw, or the first like big explosion she went like a jumping Superman punch right into the straight right hand of Santos, which is her best shot and her only method of victory. It was like she was trying to get hit there early with that shot, and it was kind of bizarre. It was like she was doing what John Jones has done in the past. She was trying to beat her at her own game and show that she's better everywhere, but it just clearly wasn't working and nearly cost her the fight. And, you know, I don't think that was. I don't like. It looked like it was a John Jones thing, but I don't think it. I don't think that was the plan. I think she thought she was going to have an advantage there, and Santos just ended up being way stronger than her in the clinch in the wrestling. But I don't know why she kept going back to it, even though her corner told her not to. She just insisted on going back to the grappling realm, and, you know, on another day with that tactic, you know, she'd probably lose more times than she'd win, but she got away lucky. Maybe that headbutt was, I think that headbutt was huge, to be honest. I don't know what you thought about that. Yeah,
not headbutt, but head clash.
Yeah. Look, when it causes that much damage, like I think the doctor should have been called in to look at that eye. It was so badly closed and it was affecting her so much. And I think maybe they did it between rounds. I actually didn't notice. I'm probably looking at my phone and doing different things. But
and she took a couple of more little clashes on her head or on that eye. Again, when your eye's already damaged like that and you're taking another couple of head clashes, it's obviously not ideal in any way.
It can, like, I remember myself and Ian went back and we watched the Jędrzejczyk Zhang Weili first fight, and a similar thing happened. You know, there was a clash of heads, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk's head was ballooned up, and those things, they do change a fight, even if they're unintentional, and, you know, no one would be asking for a point to be taken or anything like that. But it absolutely, because if you look at the last 2 rounds, and I'm sure we'll go through the scoring here in a second, but no one denies, I think round 4 and round 5, Valentina Shevchenko won it. So all it takes at that point is for her to have kind of stolen one of the close first 3 rounds, or to have won one of the first 3 rounds. And, you know, that's obviously the way it turned out, although one judge had her 49-46 as well. But it definitely did. That closed eye, she was like the grappling exchanges that were going against her earlier in the fight were going for her. No, that was a massive part of it, the head clash. But I also think maybe, you know, being used to being in 5 rounds, being, you know, the old dog for the hard roads, we'll say. Even it reminds me of the Munster final last week. You know, went to a draw and Clare did really well, and then Limerick took over in extra time because they're used to being there. They've gone to extra time, you know, in an All-Ireland semi-final against Cork, and they know they can win. It felt like, you know, she knew that she had to win that in the last 2 rounds, and she did. And she even said it herself afterwards in the press conference. She was like, they asked her with all the judges and the scorecard on, she said, I know if I fight for every second and keep going and fight to my utmost for every second that fight that I'm going to win. And it's a good way of looking at it. Like, that's the way all fighters probably should be looking at it. And that won her the fight in the end. And it was a terrible performance from Valentina Shevchenko. Let's be honest here. The fight started off, I thought it was even close on the feet, to be honest. And then Santos got the body triangle and a few neck cranks to end that first round. Big clinch in the second round, a big takedown from Santos, and she had, I think it was 3 minutes and 35 seconds of top control, they said on the broadcast, but she did nothing with it for my money. Valentina Shevchenko almost got a go-go plata. She landed a few punches. Jason Herzog ended up standing him up, so that kind of tells you what she did on the ground. And then Valentina won the last few seconds on the feet again. The round 3 then, I thought Valentina was winning early, but not much in it. There was a late takedown from Talia Santos, rear naked choke attempts, but I didn't think any of them were close, even though the crowd were going mad, the commentary were going mad and everything like that. To me, they weren't that close. And in round 4 and 5, you know, Shevchenko got on top, and I don't think there's any dispute in either of those 2 rounds. Do you think I called the first 3 rounds fair enough there, Graham? Like, it felt like everyone was not necessarily calling a robbery, but they were maybe giving Santos too much scoring credit. She deserved all the credit in the world in terms of the tactics and in terms of what she produced
and the fight she put up. Yeah. I think it's one of those things where we talked about it before, maybe not in a while, but where the champ, a lot more is expected of the champion. And when somebody's a big favorite and expected to win and a long time champion, when they do meet a bit of kind of unexpected resistance, people tend to kind of over tally that in their scoring. And I think I agree with you. I think it was the 3rd round. Yeah, it was the 3rd round I gave to Santos, and the rest of them I gave to Shevchenko. But, you know, there was some close rounds early on that, you know, could have went either way if she had have kind of postured up and landed some bigger shots or anything like that. But she didn't, and I think the shots Shevchenko landed were enough. And Shevchenko even kind of, you know, out small punched her from the ground at stages as well. Even when she had her back taken, she was kind of landing the better punches in kind of awkwardly over her own shoulder. So yeah, I think, you know, I criticize Shevchenko for her performance, and I stand by that. But I think she did enough, like in those rounds. But she did just enough, and if the judges had gone the other way, I don't think she could have had too many complaints. Yeah,
look, it was exactly what you said there. You know, the Gustafsson-John Jones fight, where a lot of people maybe overestimated Gustafsson, or, you know, Amanda Nunes had a couple of those fights as well with Shevchenko and Jennifer, with Spencer and who's the other one? Jennifer Maya, was it as well? Or maybe was it Shevchenko with Jennifer? I don't know. Anyway, but a few of them fights have happened before, and it does tend to happen like that. But that's a little bit unfair, I think, on Santos. And that, you know, judging shouldn't be really the chat here for this fight, because it was such an interesting kind of malaise of tactics and mistakes and, you know, good portions of the fight. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head there as well, by saying if Santos had kind of landed more and done more in those areas, she could have won the fight, and she probably would have won the fight. Now, there were certain times she didn't get that long, you know, on the ground, or she didn't get that long to land the shots. You know, when you're fighting someone like Valentina Shevchenko as well, you need to secure that position. You need to hold her down, and, you know, it's not as if you can just hold her down and start landing shots. Like, Valentina Shevchenko is going to get up if you do too much of that. So I can absolutely understand why Santos did it. But the biggest thing I think to take out of this, or the biggest question to ask coming out of this, is this the end of Valentina Shevchenko? And that might be a weird thing to say, but is it just a bad night? And we said the exact same thing with Amanda Nunes, and she ended up losing, obviously, to Juliana Pena. But it's a massive time. It's such a very interesting time for women's MMA in these divisions. And I said it in the preview show coming in that Valentina Shevchenko, like everyone else, she will have her day. And I was like, well, mine be this weekend. But do you know what? It nearly fucking was this weekend. It nearly was. And it was someone who, a lot of people coming in talking about her as a striker. And she'd only 3 submission wins on her ledger. And I went back and I watched some of her fights. And I was like, this girl, she's not really a striker. No, she's more of a grappler. She's more of like she's good jiu-jitsu. She's good control when the fight gets to the ground. And Shevchenko kind of, as you said, going into that realm and fighting in that way and trying to get her to the ground. She even, like at one stage it was like she was pulling guard a little bit to get the fight to the ground, and Santos was landing on top, and it was like, what are you doing here? Why are you doing this? And Santos took full advantage of it in terms of she didn't freeze, she didn't panic when she got on top, and she, maybe that lack of panic actually kind of worked against her a little bit, but it was a fantastic effort from Santos, like someone who goes in there against Marada Borello, and she was outworked in that one. She was beaten in the clinch in that one. She was taken down in that one. And, we've seen her taking down the likes of Molly McCann and others, and Joanne Wood as well in her last fight, and winning those fights. But I didn't think she'd be able to do it against Valentina Shevchenko, but I was absolutely wrong, and she did it very, very well. But yeah, I think, look, I still think the right person won, but it's a fight I would like to see a rematch of, because I think the rematch proves 2 things. And, people will probably say, well, you went on a rant last week about not having immediate rematches. But when it was a fight like this, and in a division like this where there's really no other challenger, and someone puts on such a fight against Valentina Shevchenko, she's the only one to me that makes sense if you're to do another fight at 125. Now, there's probably fights at 135 and title fights at 135 for Shevchenko, but at 125, I think this is the fight to make again. What are your thoughts on that? Like, Valentina going forward?
I think it is the fight to make again straight away, even though a lot of immediate rematches can get annoying, but I think this one is deserved. As I mentioned, that head clash causing that big swelling, closing the eye, it's very unfortunate. And even with that, she still put up a great fight with the injured eye. So I do think she deserves it, and I would like to see the fight again. I do think it's the fight to make for Valentina. I think there's so many little decisions she could have made to make the fight so much easier for herself, and she could have kind of walked it, or at least had it a lot more comfortable than she did. So if they were to rematch, I'd expect her coaches to be drilling her for the 8-week camp on staying away from the clinch, and not trying to prove it there and kind of succumbing under the strength of Santos. I think she just got out muscled and out strengthened in a lot of positions, and maybe was a bit pig-headed and trying to, even at the end of the 5th round, she got a takedown when she kind of didn't need to, and risked kind of getting reversed in a scramble like she had been before, or just kind of reversed on the ground. So yeah, I think with the correct game plan going in there, she should have it quite comfortable. But maybe it is a case of her heart isn't in it as much, or maybe it is a case that she was injured or something was going on in her personal life and things like that, or just a bad day at the office. Sometimes these guys, everything doesn't click, everything kind of goes a bit wrong and things like that. I don't necessarily see it in this one, maybe in the camp more than in the actual fight. I think the fight was more her fault that it was so close. But I'd love to see the rematch. Yeah,
I agree with everything you said there. Like, we that's one part of the MMA game that we're never privy to. We don't know what's going on in the camp. There's only a select few people in the world that know what's going on in their camp, and like the world is still kind of up in arms as well in terms of all different things and where you can go to train and what you can do. So as someone, I heard that the lads,
even with the perfect camp, even when you're perfectly fit, like a Messi over the years, or Ronaldo, any of these guys can have a really bad day. They can miss a penalty and miss a sitter and score an own goal or whatever. It's you could still be at your peak, the best in the world, and have a bad day, or not the greatest day.
Yeah, look at Liverpool. Like, they had 3 finals this year and didn't score 1 goal, so that's pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, that wasn't great.
That's pretty poor now. In fairness, though, you managed to win 2 cups and you didn't score 1 goal in the final, so that's a fair achievement. Well done. Congratulations.
I scored plenty of penalties, no? The whole 11 scored penalties.
Congratulations. You can, when no one's defending, you're great. You'd be a great golf player, wouldn't you? You go join up with some golf tour there, you'd be fine.
Living in the past.
Exactly, yeah. We'll move on. Any final thoughts on that? It feels like that is a fight that
is unfinished. It feels like
it's unfinished. But even if it doesn't happen again, it feels like it's like a pause point in Valentina Shevchenko's career, a little bit like Amanda Nunes as well. It's like we have to see her next fight to fully analyze that fight, if that makes sense. Like, was it an off night or was it not an off night? Was it a changing of Valentina Shevchenko's whole career? Because, and you know, I think as well, and I mentioned this in one of the preview shows, like Valentina has been talking about 135. She's been talking about Pena. She's actually looking at Miesha Tate as well. She mentioned it last night, who's coming down to 125. Like, was she overlooking Santos? Was this one of these fights? Oh, look, I just have to get this out of the way, and then I have bigger fights ahead, and I have more money coming. It could have been that. Yeah, it could have been that, but we will only know that next time out. But having said that, taking absolutely nothing away from Talia Santos, she did very, very well. Just before we move on, I suppose quickly on the judging. The first 3 rounds were close, so I think anything from people probably give out to me for this now, but I think anything from 50-45 to Shevchenko to 48-47 for Santos is a good card, honestly, because if you look at it, Graham, you go for the third, I go for the first. Like, if we both got that wrong, then Shevchenko wins both of those rounds. It's 50-45. So it is one of those cards. I have absolutely no debate with you at all if you think Santos won that fight 48-47. Although that second round, if you're giving that to Santos, you're doing it wrong, I think, because she didn't.
I think it actually is a wrong scorecard to give it to Santos.
Yeah,
I think Shevchenko did do enough. I think that, as I mentioned, that kind of expectancy bias, nearly probably the best way to call it, of the champion probably played into the scorecards that went against Shevchenko. But you know, if you missed, or if a judge was like on the wrong side or missed a couple of shots here and there, then it's understandable. But yeah, I think watching it back carefully, you'd have to score for Shevchenko.
I think expectancy bias is a new fucking phrase that you've just coined, and that we're going to use forever in mixed martial arts. I'm not even going to lie. Like, the champion coming in expected to blow away the challenger, and then the challenger does well, and everyone scores the fight for the challenger, even though the champion won 3 or 4 or maybe 5 rounds of the fight. Makes perfect sense, and that's exactly, I think, what we had here. While at the same time, let's say it again, very good performance from Santos. Before we get, Graham, to the main event, I want to talk about Joanna Jędrzejczyk against Zhang Weili. What an interesting fight this was. We had a lot more grappling in round 1 from Zhang. You know, she actually pulled guard here as well at one stage, and Joanna tried to get on top, almost got on top, but Yang was just too strong for her. But Joanna, I compared her to Jose Aldo this week and called her the female Jose Aldo, and when she got taken down, I kind of reminded myself of why I said that. She just never stopped fighting on the ground. She refused to be taken down, or to stay down. She was taken down, but she refused to stay down, and she ended up getting back up every single time. And now Zhang won that first round really well, and she landed a lot of elbows as well. It wasn't the furthest round in the world from a 10-8, but I think 10-9 was definitely the right score. She landed some beautiful stuff, but Joanna was landing as well. Second round, Jędrzejczyk comes out and she's fighting southpaw, and myself and Ian did the rewatch this week, and Harry did a great job on one man boot as well, breaking down the whole fight. But she came out, fought southpaw, and it was one of those rounds where she didn't maybe have enough time after she adjusted to show the success, but I thought she was doing okay with it. She was landing a couple of jabs. I think Zhang really cottoned on to the southpaw stance this time quicker than she did the last time, because she struggled badly with it the last time, but she stayed very defensive here, I think, when she did it, but took her opportunities when the fight got inside, or when, you know, the stance no longer mattered, when they were too close to each other. And then we all saw what happened. I see it here in Topology, spinning back fist. This wasn't a spinning back fist. This was a spinning forearm right to the ear. Caught Joanna Jędrzejczyk right behind the ear and just face planted her on the ground. You know, it was one of those ones, I think she said afterwards that she could see it happening and she could kind of feel the shot landing, and it wasn't one that maybe knocked her out or hurt her massively, but just took away her senses and put her on the ground, and she just put her into a state where she could not move, and it looked like that. You know, going back watching it again, it absolutely looked like that. But this, like their first fight, for every second of it was just unmissable. Like, even when the fight hit the ground and Zhang was maybe landing shots on top, Jędrzejczyk was fighting all the time. There was probably a good few seconds where Zhang looked, oh, she's going to get the finish here, but in Jędrzejczyk's just inability to give up, she just would not realize a loss for herself in that first round, and most people would, and she kept going, and that made that fight there so exciting. On the feet, they were just throwing fucking leather. It was brilliant, and in the second round we got a brilliant knockout, but I just wanted more. I felt like we needed more, and we unfortunately didn't get it. But what a fight, Graham. I really enjoyed it. Anything you took away from it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those fights. I think I said it before the fight. It was one of those fights that if it was going to go 3 rounds, you were going to want 2 more rounds, so it was going to seem incomplete either way. And even though it was a beautiful finish by Yang, it did kind of it was a little bit disappointing. Maybe that's a bit of fondness for Joanna and what she's done in the past, but you know, as you said, she gave it her all. She came through adversity. Yang put on a brilliant performance in the first round. Probably took Joanna by surprise a bit how much she relied on the grappling, but Joanna fought through a couple of bad positions. She ate a couple of shots, a couple of big shots, and fought through. And it seemed like the tide was a little, kind of coming her way a little bit. It didn't seem like Yang was out of it, but it did seem like Joanna was coming into it more. And then just as that was happening, you know, the KO happened, or the TKO happened. And yeah, I think it was the commentators were kind of saying, oh, she was KO'd, but I do agree that she was just kind of maybe her equilibrium was gone for a second, because she seemed all right a couple of seconds later when the camera cut back to her. So it was a really good performance from Yang, but it did seem, like I said earlier, like Joanna, maybe it was a bit of a changing in the guard, that even when she's kind of, you know, giving it her all, it's just isn't enough anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know would I 100% agree with that, but you might be right. And you know, the fact she did retire afterwards, if she does stay retired, then you're absolutely correct. That's it. But yeah, although I saw Sean Denny talking today, and you know, obviously our Polish expert here in SevereMMA, and he's saying like the amount of work she can get in Poland and the amount of different things she would be able to do there that will, you know, she won't be getting punched in the face doing it, is probably a lot bigger than we know. So, you know, she seems like she wasn't too bothered about fighting over the last couple of years. She's a lot of opportunities outside of the cage. So maybe it is one of those ones where, you know, the biggest reason a lot of people retire retire and come back is because they don't have maybe those opportunities outside of the cage, and they don't know what to do after fighting. And it looks like Joanna does have that, so maybe that's a reason for it. And she is getting older as well, as she said herself, and she's been around for a long time. It's not just her MMA fights, but she's been fighting Muay Thai, you know, fighting the likes of Valentina Shevchenko and Muay Thai since she was fucking 19 years of age or whatever it is. That's a long road. That is a long road, and you wouldn't blame her. Now, having said that, you know, I think she'd be back, and you think she'd be back, and we all probably think she'd be back. But if it is what a career it's been for Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I always feel a bit weird when people are calling her the greatest of all time at the weight class, when Rose Namajunas has knocked her out and then beat her the second time as well, and then Zhang Weili has beaten her twice as well.
Yeah, I think she used to be, but obviously, though, kind of, as I said, the game has kind of caught up with her and bypassed her a little bit.
It has. Although, yeah, I think the adjustments in the last fight against Zhang were pretty good. She needed to move on and make more in this fight, and she definitely didn't, I don't think, and I think that's the biggest reason she lost. Like, she needed to be more varied with her strikes. She needed to do lots of different things. She needed to change the southpaw more and quicker, and she didn't do it, and that's the reason why she lost this fight. You know, Zhang was landing first, whether it was landing a takedown or it was landing the big shot, and that was the key to this fight. And you know, she that was the reason she lost, even though she did perform well, and she did, you know, she fought for every second of the fight, and she landed her shots when she needed to land it. Yeah, just it does feel like the game has passed her by a little bit. You know, I compare her to Aldo, and that was something that happened to Aldo briefly, but then he always kind of dragged it back, you know, and he's kind of still doing that at the moment. And it feels like maybe that's a thing that Jędrzejczyk hasn't been able to do in her career, and maybe won't get a chance to do now. But you know, it's another one we should probably put a date in our calendar. You know, a year down the line, we'll actually talk about her retirement and what a great fighter she was. But great fighter, regardless. But Zhang Weili now moves on and fights Carla Esparza, more than likely for the title. Although Spencer Kite will probably go mad and think it'll be Rodriguez, wherever it might be. But yeah, I think putting Zhang Weili back into that title fight and having her beat Carla Esparza is probably the way to go here. And I think that's a horrible matchup for Carla Esparza, if we're being honest, because she's good grappling and she's going to beat her on the feet.
Yeah, maybe the retirement thing from Joanna, it is a hard one to take, as we mentioned before the fight. You know, it kind of was a fight. Both of these girls would be looking at this fight saying, if I win this, I have Carla Esparza, and I'd be pretty confident, very confident in winning that fight and being the champion. So for Joanna, it was a big blow. You know, it probably meant a lot to her. She kind of knew this was her chance to get back to the top, and obviously it went against her, and it's emotional and all that stuff, and laying your gloves out. But you know, she's only 34 years old. I know she's been around a long time, but I'd be shocked if we don't see her again, really, to be honest.
Yeah, and I hope we do. I think she's lots to still fight. Another person I hope we see again is Glover Teixeira, and this main event. Oh, do you know what? I left it till the third fight because I needed a little bit of time to breathe after it. I'm still hyped. The fight happened about 7 or 8 hours ago, but I'm still hyped over what a massive back and forth. I've written a few notes here, but still, I don't know. Is there any point to reading out these notes? It was just Glover was winning, and then Yuri was winning, and Yuri had him hurt. Looked like it was going to be finished, but then Glover came back, had him hurt. Looked like he was going to finish it. Just over and over. And it reminded me of the Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk first fight. It was just such ebbs and flows. It was a very hard fight if you're to talk about it technically or tactically throughout the fight. It felt like tactics were all thrown out the window after the first round. You know, Glover got a takedown, landed some good ground and pound, landed some good right hands on the feet as well. He had the mount. He had lots of shots. And then Yuri Prochazka came back and, you know, nearly stole the round towards the end with lots of shots. But I thought Glover won that one. The second round, Yuri was absolutely smashing him. But then there was heavy ground and pound for Glover Teixeira late. Landed some big elbows. And I thought Glover won that round because of that as well. Then the third round, Yuri hurt him many times, over and over and over. Glover got a late takedown again, but he was tired. I thought Yuri won that round. The third round, Yuri was a bit ahead, not too much. But then Glover got on top. Almost got that arm triangle, but then there was massive ground and pound late for Yuri. Was it enough? Maybe not. A really close round. In the fifth, Glover nearly KO'd him early about 3 times.
Yeah.
And then he pulled the guillotine.
Went for that guillotine. I couldn't believe it. I actually couldn't believe it.
He went full Franz Malambo on it. What did you think of that fifth round?
Oh God, I like, it was back and forth, and it looked like guys are going to be finished like throughout the rounds. But in the fifth round, it really looked like, oh, this is it. Glover has him here, and then he went for that guillotine. It just wasn't on at all. Slippy, bloody, just a really bad decision from such an experienced guy. And obviously, they were both tired, and you know they'd taken a lot of shots. They're both probably concussed, but if he just had thrown a flurry there, I think maybe the ref would have stepped in, or he would have been able to crumple Proch in his corner. So for Glover, I'd say I look back at that moment and be sickened. But you know, maybe Yuri could have held down both guys. Looked like at different stages, like it might be the beginning of the end, and it wasn't. So you know, fair play to him in a lot of ways as well. You know, he was just as much overcame just as much adversity and dished out just as much, if not more, damage. So it was an absolutely brilliant fight. I think, you know, for Glover, I think that moment going for that guillotine was what cost him. I think if he had have just won that round, I think he probably would have won the fight. But you know, there were so many close rounds, and it was hard to score because there was so much going on. I can't even remember half of the stuff because there were so many huge incidents in the fight. But I think, yeah, that was a big mistake that, you know, he'll live to regret. But you know, Yuri did brilliant, and you know, he's had a ridiculously quick rise to the top, and you know, fair play to him. We've seen others crumple under the same kind of pressure that Teixeira had on him there. So yeah, just an absolutely brilliant fight. I'd have to go back and watch it a few times to realize and remember exactly what happened in all of those exchanges, because so much was going on. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it was a magnificent fight, like right up there with Alexander Gustafsson, John Jones is one of the greatest light heavyweight fights of all time, and it was arguably more kind of back and forth throughout the rounds. Like that fight, Gustafsson a great for round and Jones a great for round, and there were obviously some close rounds as well, but it felt like this was a different level of kind of back and forth, and it was so exciting. And I actually thought Yuri early maybe didn't fight his natural game. He looked a bit wooden, and it's easy to look wooden, I suppose, when you're as languid and loose a fighter normally as Yuri Prochazka is. But Glover really took that and use it to his advantage, and I think maybe a part of that, and we always talk about it, Graham, is not giving up on those takedowns, going for a takedown, getting a takedown, and then you make your opponent think about that takedown for the rest of the fight. And if your opponent is a guy who moves around and non-stop on the feet, that's having someone like that thinking of something apart from their own movement is massive and is a game changer in the whole fight. And I think that's exactly what it was for Glover Teixeira early in this. But I just think the level of damage that both guys landed and that both guys took and that both guys got through was insane. It was absolutely insane. Like, there was multiple times where the fight was on the ground and it felt like there was heads bouncing off the canvas with ground and pound.
Multiple times each round, even.
Yeah, multiple times each round. Exactly. It was crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a fight like that where there was so many near ending points in the fight for both people. You've seen it, maybe a 10-7 round or Weidman versus Rockhold or something like that. But when it's both guys doing it over 5 rounds, that it has to be up there as one of the greatest fights of all time. It was just insane, and it was a weird thing. It's a fight I think actually better on rewatch, because watching it at the time, I just kept thinking the fight's going to be finished. If you get me, it didn't really even enter my head that it was going to go all 5 rounds. So maybe I didn't respect it for like the back and forth in terms of where the next piece.
And when it's such a back and forth and so exciting, it's hard to think about judging the fight. You just kind of get drawn in, and it's hard to kind of take back and kind of analytically look at it and say, oh, who's landing? You're just kind of like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? It's a real kind of roller coaster and kind of takes your mind off the scoring of the rounds.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, we didn't mention the finish, but Yuri Prochazka ended up obviously getting the what do you call it, a bulldog choke, rear naked choke at the end of the fight. Hooks, rear naked choke, Dave Fogarty style, and getting the finish. What did you think of my fake tap, Graham? Did you see that video I sent?
I think if it was in a position where there was a submission on, he was definitely, like, the ref probably would have called it, but I think the ref kind of knew that he was just kind of, the kind of shitty chase on him, ground and pound punches. I think he was just trying to do that, but it's a risky thing. If Glover had some kind of like half arm triangle, maybe the ref would have thought, oh yeah, that's a tap. But because there was no kind of obvious submission on, I think Goddard knew that he was just landing little crappy shots from the bottom.
Yeah, apparently he did it throughout the fight as well. The lads were saying it over in a group, and I actually think Goddard did warn him at one stage between rounds, so fair play to him, but he kind of kept doing it, and that's the sort of things people didn't see it. Glover was he in mount? He was on top anyway, and then Prochazka kind of tapped his head, but he put him off his punches, and then Glover kind of moved as well. Like, it's one of those things where if you're the fighter on the end of that tap or small punches or whatever, that you're going to move kind of naturally, and it's going to give the guy in the bottom the advantage, and it's going to give him a second to get out or whatever. And I think that's a dirty tactic, and I see a lot of people do. We see Brazilian taps all the time, and I think that was a very bad example of it, to be honest. But anyway, maybe that's just me, and maybe I'm
Brazilian tap.
Brazilian tap is very different to that. Yeah,
is more when you're in a submission and you're trying to kind of get the natural reaction from jiu-jitsu training of the guy letting go when he feels the tap, but the ref not seeing it. But I think this is more like the Chael Sonnen thing, or even more like the Randy Couture. I can't remember who it was, but he like tapped him on the ass at one stage, not in the submission.
James Toney,
like,
was it?
Maybe it was. No, I don't think so. I think
it was.
might even been Tito.
It was Tito. Yeah, it was Tito.
He kind of slapped him on the ass, but like it's a tap, like, you know. But there was no submission on, so everybody kind of knows that he's not submitting to a choke here or a submission.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Overall, though, like it was such an interesting fight. It was another one of those ones that, like, it was an amazing fight, but felt like it. Do you know, sometimes the better fighter on the night loses, and I think that's kind of what happened here in this fight. And so it felt a little bit weird towards the end, and the commentary, and I don't blame him for it, but after the fight they kept talking about how, you know, Glover was ahead in the scorecards. Glover would have won if it went to the end and all, but the fight was finished. Like, we talk about Chael Sonnen again. Don't go full Chael Sonnen against Anderson Silva.
Yeah, I was winning for 24 minutes.
Yeah, that's how MMA works. You know, it's not like fucking soccer or whatever. You know, it's that's the way MMA is. And he got the finish and he won the fucking fight. And fair play to him. He absolutely deserved it at that point. But yeah, it was an insane one altogether. It's the type of fight though. Who do you think would win the rematch if it happened?
Oh, like, it's hard to know, because Proch kind of has experience now, the confidence of, you know, going the distance in a title fight, his first title fight. Obviously, it's a big moment. Glover's obviously had some main events and been around a long time and won the title, so maybe Proch be a little more comfortable. But, you know, I think, like, obviously it's hard to say somebody threw it away when they did so much and overcame so much, but I do think in the fifth round, you know, that going for that guillotine was just a vital mistake from Glover. And I think if he just, it's hard to say because there's so much change, but I probably lean Glover in a rematch. But I think it could go either way. Either guy could get knocked out, or either guy could get submitted, kind of like in this fight. But yeah, I'd probably just edge Glover if it was to happen again quickly.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure. Like, I think, especially the two of us, we've talked about Glover so much. I think we know now not to rule him out. I just feel like Prochazka didn't. I think Glover fought as well as he can fight. And, you know, he was winning the fight, obviously, doing that. But I feel like Prochazka has another level, or maybe two levels on top of where he fought in that fight. And I think someone mentioned it as well about him fighting, you know, behind closed doors and not fighting that much over the last while. And, you know, it'd only been his third UFC fight, and obviously the mad crowd, and have been over in Singapore and all that. Maybe that was a thing that kind of played against him mentally. And I definitely think mentally from the start of the fight, he didn't look as on it as he normally would. And maybe that's a thing that will change for the next fight. And, you know, Glover is also 42 years of age. There is a certain point where
I think part of that though is, you know, definitely there's the main event, the big show, the first time, and all that stuff. There must be extra nerves, but I do think, like, you know, the threat of the takedown and how much damage Glover can do from getting a takedown, and the threat on the feet as well. You know, he kind of didn't have a safety haven anywhere to kind of try and force the fight to be. So. Yeah, it's, you know, Glover's not getting any younger, and nobody's getting any younger. But if it was to happen again, it would probably, for Glover's advantage, it would have to be quick. But if it was to happen again, it'd probably be a pick 'em fight. You know, so much happened in that fight that I really need to watch it again a few times.
We'll have to do a
to
second
really
podcast.
Understand what happened.
Well, a hot topic this week. You're doing it with Harry, aren't you? So you'll be able to talk about that a little bit. Maybe we'll get the rewatch in before that. So yeah, let's run through the rest of the card here. And it was a bananas start the card. Even the first fight of the night, Jocelyn Edwards against Ramona Pascal. Edwards ended up getting the nod there in that one. Pascal landed two beautiful body shots and then a big knee and a big head kick towards the end of the first round. She was losing to take that, but then Jocelyn Edwards won the next two rounds. She was just working the body all night with kicks and throwing these front kicks, throwing these long teeps from both feet, legs.
Loads of output with the kicks. And
I don't think I've ever seen someone throwing as many shots as that. But you know, a good performance from her. A very odd sort of weight to fight, but it was effective and it won her the fight, so good job there. Then Silviana Gomez-Juarez got a beautiful, massive knockout over Neil Yang, absolutely put her out of her senses, only 82 seconds into the first round, so that was a very good one. There was 2 unanimous decision wins then for Kyoho Kang and Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen beating Malkoun and Dana Batragal, losing to Kang there.
Even though Malkoun lost that fight, he looks like he has potential. He gets the takedowns and he didn't really posture up and land any shots. And if he had done that, he probably would have won that fight 29-28. So obviously that's only his 8th fight. He's 6-2 now. He'll probably improve with experience, but he does look to have a bit of potential.
Indeed, yeah, he's not a bad fighter. No, my guy Harry Powell was talking about him, so yeah, he does have potential. Mashate then, I've been calling Misha Ted all night.
Misha hate.
Very good knockout again over Steve Garcia, and he looks good. It looks like a guy coming through who could be a prospect as well. Won it obviously early in the first round, moves to 9-1. So definitely, I was going to say a name to remember, but it's a good name. He's like Seal or something. He's only one name. You wouldn't forget it in a long time. So very good stuff there. Josh Kulabau then won against Sung Woo Choi. That was a banger of a fight altogether. Maybe not the best quality in the world. Remind me, I was talking to Harry and Spencer of the Strazano fight from last week or a couple of weeks ago. Great as well, Graham, to see Alan Philpott in the corner of Josh Kulabau, and I know he's out in Australia and he's been training lads and doing different things, but good to see Alan out there, Graham.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for a second I was like, is that Philpott? And then it kind of zoomed in a bit. I'm like, that's definitely Philpott. So yeah, it was a surprise to see him in the corner, but it's good to see him over there training, kind of. Hopefully, I think Alan made a comeback recently, but I think he got submitted. But hopefully he can kind of get his career back on track. He's obviously for such a young guy, he's a ridiculously long list of experience and been around for a long time. So it was good to see him in the corner, and it was a good win for his teammate. And the third round didn't go all his own way, but he kind of had it in the bag from the first 2 rounds. But yeah, it was a good performance all around. Yeah,
very good stuff, and a very enjoyable fight there as well in that one. Then we got to the bigger fights. Jack Della Maddalena, what a performance here from him again. Yeah. Looks really good. Like, I wasn't sure coming in. I watched
he looked him. Like he was going to get submitted. Well, I don't know, about a minute into the fight. MF, he's a bit stiff, but once he latched onto that choke, I thought, oh, this is bad news. But in fairness to Della Maddalena, he fought through, and that obviously the liver punch was absolutely lovely. It just crumpled him and finished the fight, and it was kind of a little bit of a delayed reaction. Obviously, I've never been hit that hard in the body, but we've seen it before where guys can kind of think they're all right for a second or two and then just crumble, and it looks really nice as on the highlight reel as well.
It really does. Yeah. It was either an arse or an anaconda. I never know which one it was, but almost he got out of it very well. The way he moved out of it as well, he did a great job of it. But those 2 liver shots, I think the first one, it was weird. It was like it kind of stunned the liver a bit. In the second one, knocked out the liver. I don't know, it was weird. And it absolutely crumpled him. And Della Maddalena is one of those guys where you look at the ability he has on the feet and think, well, if he can keep that fight on the feet, there aren't many guys who can live with him. And I think he fought a middleweight before. This was at 170 though, so there's some very, very interesting fights for him at that weight class, and maybe even a couple of guys in this card who we'll be talking about in a second. But a stunning performance from him again. Like, Imaev is the type of guy who, as we saw, he's very dangerous submissions. He can throw a big right hand down through the middle, and he's obviously very good wrestling as well, coming out of Dagestan, but maybe not that top level. But for a guy with only 12, 13 fights coming in here, to with not the biggest pro record, with not the best record against, he's never fought anyone good, let's put it that way, to come in there and have such a test against someone like Imaev, it was a great win and a great performance, and onwards and upwards for Jack Della Maddalena, and onwards and upwards too for Jake Matthews. What a fucking performance.
It's kind of the performance we've been waiting for about 7-8 years from Jake Matthews. He's had the tools, but it just seems, I said it on the podcast before, it just seems like it all goes wrong, or he zigs when he should have zagged, or he puts his head somewhere he shouldn't have put it and gets submitted, or it just doesn't seem to click consistently for him. But in this fight, against a good opponent who I thought was going to beat him, and I thought would probably finish him, he just looked like he kind of evolved into all the potential that is kind of everybody thought was there, but maybe started losing faith in. Like, I started losing faith in him. Like, for a few years there, I'd pick him in every fight, and he'd let me down. And like in this fight, I was thinking, this is a bad style matchup, but it just wasn't. Jake Matthews he just looked really confident out there. He looked really flowy. He just looked better everywhere, and he just put on the best performance of his career by a mile.
100%. He was phenomenal, and I don't say that word lightly. This was a phenomenal performance, and people probably know how much I read Andre Fiallo, a really good fighter, and I still think he's a very good fighter. Maybe taking the fight in short notice wasn't the best idea, and I'm going back on what I said in the preview show coming in, because I thought it was a good idea, but hindsight is, what did Artem say, Graham? It's easy to be the general after the battle.
I think it was Luka Jelkic. It's easy to be the general after the battle, yeah.
Indeed. But having said that, right, so what Andre Fiallo is, I always compare him to Conor McGregor. He's a pressure counter fighter. He pressures you and then he counters you. Jake Matthews wasn't biting on any of the pressure. And whenever Fiallo struck, Jake Matthews just countered him and hurt him badly time after time after time. Just styled on him with the striking, was so much faster, was so much more powerful. Just looked confident. I think John Anik said it in the commentary, that he went back and he watched some of his old fights and kind of believed in what he could do. And it looked like a guy who believed in himself. And before, Jake Matthews was a guy who maybe was, what do they call it? They overanalyze it, and they're just kind of looking at themselves, and they're waiting and overthinking everything. Yeah, and just it was the exact opposite of that tonight. And I said it during the week on the preview show as well. We were talking about Jake Matthews, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if he won this fight, because Jake Matthews has so much potential, and he could have a career like someone, and I said this exact thing, like a Michael Bisping or someone like that, where it comes in, like Bisping came in as a massive prospect to the UFC, 13, 14, 15-0 or something like that, and then lost a few fights, and maybe didn't, go to the level of Matthews, where he was maybe losing to guys on a certain level, but then he obviously came back. Like, Matthews came in with this big hype, got pushed in there against good guys, ended up losing fights, but he still has that, and he's only 27 years of age or something like that. He is the type of guy who, if he can continuously put it together, he's a big, strong guy. He's fast, as we saw last night. He can hit hard. He's good wrestling, good all around. He happened to meet a guy like Sean Brady, who probably has all of that as well, and a little bit better in his last fight. But if Jake Matthews puts the striking that he looked to put in this fight with, everything else, he's going to be a hard guy to beat for anyone in that division, never mind fucking Andre Fiallo or anyone else. I can't get over how good this performance was, Graham. What did you think of it?
Yeah, and it is absolutely brilliant. And confidence is such a huge thing in sports and in life in general. And the mental side of things. Like, I don't know, I haven't heard much of Jake Matthews. I haven't heard anything about his mental approach to fights. But it does seem like there is some kind of, as you said, overthinking going on, or some kind of self-doubt or something going on in the past. But this time it just looked like he was brimming with confidence, and if he can continue to brim with confidence and continue to kind of believe in himself and let his game go, then yeah, he's a handful for anybody, and he's dangerous in all positions. And yeah, the potential that everybody kind of talked about 6-7 years ago, or however long it was ago when he came to the UFC, it all seems to have clicked there. Like, I'd like to see it again in another fight or two consistently before we kind of start talking to him about him as a title contender. But if he can continue like this, and that's the next step that's going to be there if he can do it. So I'm definitely more interested in his next fight than I have. I'm more interested in watching him in his next fight than I have been in a long time watching him.
100%. I just see here in the card next week, Tim Means is fighting Kevin Holland. I wouldn't mind seeing the winner of that fighting Jake Matthews next. I think that'd be a potential good matchup. But yeah, very impressed with Jake Matthews even. So let's talk about next week. It's a fucking great card next week, but there's a lot of fights on it. Starting off with Kyle Dawkins against Roman Dolidze, Darren Wynn even against Phil Hawes. That's a very interesting fight. Eddie Wineland is back, Graham. Jeez, I haven't seen Eddie Wineland in a while. He's fighting Cody Stamen. Mari Oliveira against Gloria DePaula. We've Court McGee on the card. We've Tony Kelly, Jesus, after only playing for Clare last week. He's great to be back here. He's fighting Adrian Yanez. There's some really good talent on this. As I mentioned, Kevin Holland versus Means. And in the top two fights, Joe Lozon versus Donald Cerrone and Josh Emmett against Calvin Kattar. Obviously, we'll have a full breakdown of that in the preview show this week. But quickly, Graham, on Calvin Kattar against Josh Emmett. It's a very interesting fight for that 145-pound division because, look, Max Holloway is fighting against the champion Volkanovski coming up here in a few weeks or months or whenever it is. If Volkanovski wins that, someone will have to be next in line, and it looks. I thought, and a lot of people thought it'd probably be Arnold Allen, and he called out Calvin Kattar, and we're thinking, okay, if he fights Kattar and beats him, he'll definitely be the next in line. But now the fact that these two lads have kind of got a jump on him, and the UFC kind of likes both of these lads. One of these lads could be that next in line. Now, having said that, if Max Holloway wins, they'll probably all be waiting 2.5 years because we probably another 2 rematches to go after that if that does happen. But Kattar versus Emmett, Graham, what tell us about that one?
Yeah, this is a hard fight to pick. This is a hard fight to know which way it's going to go. I think both guys are massively underrated and have a lot of tools for potentially winning for them here. Obviously when Calvin Kattar went in against Max Holloway and kind of got schooled, everybody kind of wrote him off a little bit. But he came in there against Gigan in his last fight. He looked great. And if you look at his losses before that, it's Magomed Sharipov and Moicano. And you have to go back to 2010, 2008 for his last losses. So he has some good wins there, and Emmett the same. He's been on a good streak. He's beat Bektic and Shane Burgos and Dan Ige. So I think both have to. Maybe if it goes to a decision and one or the other wins a close decision, it might not catapult them into the title shot. But if one can go out there and get a strong finish or some highlight finish, then they could catapult themselves into the kind of title picture. But it kind of all does depend on Max Holloway. Are they going to put if Calvin Kattar wins? Are they going to put him back in there with Max Holloway after the way it went the first time, which was only a year and a half ago? So yeah, I don't know which way this fight is going to go and how it's going to look. I'd probably go with Calvin just about, but it's a tough one. It's a really tough one to pick, in my opinion. Yeah,
I was kind of thinking to myself there, is like Josh Emmett probably needs the knockout to win lots of these big fights in this division. And I look, his last 2 fights, okay, it's Burgos and Ige, who are good fighters, but he's got won the unanimous decision over both of them. It's actually 2019 where he got that big knockout over Bektic, and obviously knocked out
doesn't seem like that long
Johnson as well. Yeah, I don't know why, but I just, in my brain, I'm just thinking, Calvin or Josh Emmett has this big knockout streak, but it seemingly doesn't. But do you know what? I need to go back and watch more of Emmett because I feel like I criminally underrate him at times. And my pick here is probably.
I think everybody does, yeah. I think he's one of them. He's just kind of unassuming, doesn't look unique in any way, really, just kind of average looking guy, getting his work done, not really saying too much, and people don't really pay attention, and it can happen. But
I'll change that this week, though. I promise. I'll go back and I'll watch them, and we'll be ready for the preview this week. But yeah, it's a very interesting fight, and I think it's going to be a stand-up battle, to be honest here, because I think Emmett probably more likely to take it to the ground, but still Kattar's good takedown defense and all of that. So yeah, I think it'll be a banger either way. Cerrone Lozon, Graham. It feels like maybe they're about a little bit over the hill here. Cerrone cutting down to 155. It might be an issue again because he's kind of struggled over the last few years, but still, he probably has the size and all over Lozon. I don't know who. You could never really trust Cerrone to win a fight, and especially if he's kind of head is out the game. It was supposed to happen a couple of weeks ago as well, and he's not the best with adversity and things like that. I don't know. I probably would have picked Cerrone first, probably leaning Lozon now. Maybe, I don't know. What way do you think that one will go?
I'd probably lean Cerrone just about, but with Cerrone, it's just so hard to know which Cerrone's going to show up. I don't think this is like a huge fight where he's got like a lot to kind of to fear in terms of a Conor McGregor or a Pettis or whatever, where he kind of went out there and just got destroyed. I think if he could feel his way into the fight, he'd be okay. He's obviously historically a really slow starter, Cerrone, but I don't think that Lozon's this lightning quick starter that's gonna cause him too much problems. So I think I'd probably go with Cerrone. But yeah, I'm kind of glad he's fighting Joe Lozon and not going in there as a kind of just to prop up some up and comer and just get destroyed. So
we'll be talking about.
I'm not too interested in the fight either way.
Oh yeah, we'll be talking about another MMA retirement next week when Cerrone fake retires. He's one that,
and then he's back 3 weeks later when somebody pulls out.
He'll never retire 100%. But anyway, last thing here, PFL 4 next week as well. They're back with their card. It's actually a pretty good card. I have a breakdown of this coming over in Sherdog. But one guy,
Shoeface.
Shoeface in the card. One guy I'll tell people to watch out for, Josh Silveira. And if you know the name Silveira, it's because he's Conan Silveira's son, the ATT coach. He's 8-0. I went back and watched some of his fights. He looks like a guy who's been like an NCAA wrestler, and he's really good jiu-jitsu. He's fighting Martin Hamlet, who, if anyone knows him, he's a really good wrestler as well. So that could be an absolute fucking battle. And Silveira looks like the type of guy who could climb those ranks very, very quickly. So that's a fun fight there. Rob Wilkinson's fighting Pesta. Pesta got knocked out not too long ago against Omari Akhmedov, so that quick turnaround is a bit iffy there. But I think Wilkinson will probably try to take him down, and needs to early as well, with the former two-time champion Nathan Schultz rematching Martin Held. Held beat him the last time and ended his long unbeaten run. Akhmedov is back on the card. Haushme Feo is fighting Olivier Aubin-Mercier. That'll probably be a close decision. Bruce Soto is not the best fighter in the world, and he's fighting Shoeface, as you mentioned, Graham Antonio Carlos Jr. I'd be very surprised if he didn't win that, probably early here. Clay Collard in the main event then against Alexander Martinez. This is going to be a fucking unbelievable fight. Collard, a really good boxer, obviously went and fought in or partook in some boxing bouts over the pandemic and did very, very well. Martinez, more of like a languid striker from the outside with his hands down and throws these wheel kicks and big punches from the outside, so that has banger written all over it. But the fight we want to concentrate on here, Graham, Jeremy Stephens versus Miles Price. Yeah, I spoke to Miles the other day. That'll be coming out this week on Sherdog, and he seemed confident coming in here, going quick turnaround after 3 years out of the cage between his last fight and obviously the Pettis fight. That Pettis fight obviously went badly for him, and he really admitted that. To me, it's not like he couldn't admit it, but he was very, very smart in the way he spoke about that. So I think he told me he got a week to kind of get over it in his head, and in the quick turnaround is good that you no longer have to think about that. It's been put into a compartment, left there, and now you're moving on to fight Jeremy Stephens. But Jeremy Stephens a very tough matchup as well, Graham. He did get taken down and submitted by Gamrat Early 2 fights ago, and he got into a big war with Clay Collard only a few weeks ago, which would work against him. But it's Jeremy Stephens not the easiest in the world to take down throughout the years. Good striker as well. It's only the likes of Aldo and people have beat him, but he doesn't necessarily get beaten by anyone. But so a tough matchup for Miles Price. How would you break down this one? Yeah,
it's another tough matchup, but there is definitely a method of victory here. Jeremy Stephens' takedown defense is good, but it's not brilliant, and he does overcommit on shots. So if Miles can time it well and get on top and make it dirty and difficult for Jeremy Stephens. Obviously, you mentioned he's coming off a kind of tough fight there. Only less than 2 months ago, very recently against Clay Collard. Anyway, I think Miles really needs to make it dirty early and start from there. And if he does that, I can see him grinding it out. But if he lets Jeremy Stephens kind of land early, it could get a striking going early. He probably land, and it could be bad news. But for Miles, I'm sure the game plan will be to go to the wrestling, and it's just a matter of can he get him down, and if he can get him down, can he hold him down? And I think if he does get him down, I think he can hold him down. And for the most part, obviously earlier it's going to be harder, but as the rounds go on, I can see that becoming the route to victory for Miles if he is to win. But I expect Jeremy Stephens to be a sizable betting favourite here, but there might be some value on the Miles decision.
I think Miles needs a confidence booster early. I think he needs a takedown, or he needs to gain some respect from Stephens when he's striking. People forget as well, Miles started out as a striker, and he went over to Habib, and he was kind of saying that to me as well. He kind of became a wrestler, but he can strike as well, and I just think he needs to gain that bit of confidence, because if Jeremy Stephens comes out and he wins, the first minute, second minute, third minute, it could be a little bit overwhelming again. And if it turns into kind of a very aggressive fight from Stephens after Miles being out for so long, and after the Pettis fight, that could turn against him. But if he finds, and it's a big if, because Jeremy Stephens is I don't think it's the greatest matchup in the world for Miles, honestly. If Stephens doesn't give him that second to kind of think, or that pause to kind of gain a bit of confidence, I think it could be a tough night for Miles. But look, hopefully he does get that, and hopefully it does turn into a good back and forth dogfight, and Miles can make a good showing here, and it'd be a big one if he could. But I'm looking forward to it. It should be a fun fight, and it's, up and down, it's a very, very good card, and there's lots of PFL, lots of Bellator, lots of Cage Warriors and stuff coming over the next few weeks. So looking forward to talking about all of that, as well as the UFC and everything else like that. Right, we will leave it there. That's the end of the podcast. Head on over to patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. I will have the Q&A out on Tuesday morning. If you have any questions, I'll probably be recording it Monday night. Fire the questions over there. There's a tab up there. You can get the rewatch. We do it every few weeks, but we have at least 3 podcasts every week. We have our bets for the week every week up on Patreon. It only costs $5 a month, so you get 20 podcasts, more even, and plus this one every month, so at least 24, 25, and the post as well for $5 a month. And it's only €4.50, I think. It's absolutely nothing. Patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. Or if you go to SevereMMA.com/points, it's only the price of a pint every month. So sign up there. Speaker's Corner every Thursday/Friday. The best podcast in MMA. I'm going to say it here. Speaker's Corner is fucking unbelievable. You've one man boot. Ian O'Neill doing great stuff, and all the lads as well over there. So yeah, Patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. We will leave it there, Graham. Put us out here with a quote for the week.
All right. You look so tired and unhappy. Bring down the government. They don't speak for us.